About having two new wines that we're releasing today. A few of you who might have come into the tasting room, we might have given a sneak peek of these two wines. But if you've been around us for a while, and I know some of you have, you had our Viognier, that is the white label, like that. The last time we did this type of wine was in 2014.
Yeah.
So it's been a while, and we call this style of wine more Chardonnay style, which is our blue label that's on the market right now. Our Sky Island Viognier is more of a Sauvignon Blanc style, and Kurt will go into the differentiation of those two. So we wanted to. I hope so.
She presumes and think I know more than I really do.
Yeah. There's a reason why you have Winemaker behind your name.
Is that it?
Yes. And then we wanted to introduce to you our Sky Island Petite Sirah, which is also a new wine that new to the market. And for those of you who've been around, know what Sky Island means, which for us is always a neutral oak barrel aged or stainless steel made wine. And so this is a Petite Sirah that's all in neutral oak barrels. So I'll turn it over to Kurt.
Well, I'm going to open this up. This is our 2017 Viognier, and this is different than anything we've ever made before. We typically we either make, as Peggy said, a Viognier that's either a Sauvignon Blanc style or more of a Chardonnay style, where you're going to have a little bit of oak, and you're going to have Malolactic fermentation. And I'll explain that. Most of you have heard that before, but it makes a big difference in the wines. But this one was kind of a hybrid. The fruit we got in 2017 was really, really vibrant. And I really wanted to accentuate the beautiful acidity of it. And so we chose to use 3 vessels to age this wine. We use about 30% new French oak custom hybrid barrels with medium plus toast. And then we used some neutral barrels, about 25%. And then we used some stainless steel because I really wanted to preserve that beautiful acidity that was in the fruit that year. And so this wine has, we probably should have some.
Yes, we should. Everyone else is drinking.
Yeah,
we need to start drinking.
So this one has
Cheers.
Beautiful color, very, very honey tones, some beautiful tropical notes. I pick up a lot of pineapple
You really
and you pick up a little bit of the barrel in here. You're getting a little bit of oakiness, but not a lot, little butterscotch. And then you get this beautiful blast of bright acidity at the back end. And that's coming from when we put it in the stainless steel. So when we blended this together, we had several iterations of it, but to me, it's got a really, really nice front end, more like a Chardonnay. The middle is a lot richer, maybe like a Sauterne. And then the back end is much more like a Sauvignon Blanc. That's why I like it, because I love white wine, and I really enjoy this one because it's got those 3 different that really make a big difference.
Okay, that's the wine.
So, is anyone drinking this along with us? Oh, Stas's are, and the Brazils are.
Yeah, we have Dana.
Lisa, you're at the tasting room. People drinking this?
Yes, there you go.
Look at that.
Fabulous.
Uh-oh. Tell that U of A fan he's got to leave.
Okay, no U of A fans here.
Sun Devil Central. Get that guy out of there.
We're desperate for money, but not that desperate.
Yeah.
So this wine's going to be it's a very full bodied, but it's also very clean. And so it's going to be really nice with roast chicken, lobster, mac and cheese. I think it would go great with this, and it's going to go really nicely with some other cheeses. We have one of our favorite cheeses is it's a white cheese, but it's got apricots in it.
Oh,
And it's so good with this wine. I mean, it's just stunning.
2017.
Go to Fry's, where they have a cheese section, and then in Fry's marketplaces, pick up that mango or apricot cheese. You'll get in trouble with this wine with that.
the other
It's going to go down really easy.
The other wonderful pairing for this, if I'm trying to remember if any of you attended our supper club. Yeah, Bob and Elisa have attended our supper club. We made this dish.
Rich indeed did too.
I don't know if you were at the one that we made shrimp with a vanilla beurre blanc sauce.
Oh, yeah.
This, and it sounds weird with a vanilla beurre blanc, but it paired beautifully with this style of wine.
Yeah.
It would be awesome.
A little bit of vanilla and French oak. And one of the reasons that we did malolactic fermentation on this is malolactic acid is natural in wine grapes. And that's what gives you the tartness in all wines. And it's a natural preservative that's in there. Mother Nature provides it to us through the grape. But if we choose to convert that malic acid to a lactic acid, which is the same acid that's in milk. And that's how you get a buttery Chardonnay, is by converting that malic acid to lactic acid. Well, in a lot of cases, like if you've ever had a Rombauer Chardonnay, it is a butter bomb. They do 100% malolactic fermentation, and they turn all that malic acid into lactic acid, and it's a buttery.
Like.
She loves it. I get about a glass of it in me, and I need to change. But so what we did with this one was we stopped the malolactic fermentation process at about 40%. We converted about 40% of the malic acid to lactic acid, and then we left the rest of the malic acid in there. And that's what you're picking up if you're drinking this now. You're picking up that beautiful acidity on the back end that really cleans off your palate. And that's why we stopped that malolactic fermentation process. It's also called secondary fermentation for those of you who want to know stuff like that. But primary fermentation is turning the sugar to alcohol. The secondary fermentation, if you choose to do it as a winemaker, is turning malic acid to lactic acid. And so when we get these grapes come in and we finish primary fermentation, we've made grape juice into wine. As a winemaker, we have to figure out, all right, what are we going to do next? Is it going in barrels? Is it going in tanks? Is it going in new French oak barrels? Is it going in new American oak barrels? And that's all based on the fruit profile that we're provided each harvest. And so we've got to make that call at some point. And for this one, we did something quite different in putting a new French, neutral oak, which is actually
30% new French oak.
Yeah, and then Hungarian oak barrels, and then the rest was in stainless steel.
And you had those French oak barrels custom made. What did you have done to them?
They were from two different forests in France. They had their heads made from one forest and the staves made from another forest. One brings that vanilla note to it. The other brings more of a brown sugar note. So you're going to pick up a little bit of that and from those barrels in this wine. It just makes it much more complex and interesting.
And if we put more than, I think, 30% in that new French oak, it would have been too much. It would have been over the top, probably.
Over the top financially, actually.
Well, that's true,
because
too.
the new French oak barrels are about $1,500 a piece.
Holy moly.
New once. So that adds between $3 and $4 per bottle of wine just to the production cost of having new French oak.
That's interesting.
Manage not only the fruit and make sure that it's going to have a nice flavor profile, but we also have to manage the business and not go broke. So, but usually we err much more towards how can we make this wine the best it is, and we'll figure out how to pay for it later.
Did you according to the statistics, 30% in the custom new French oak, 25% in neutral oak barrels, and 45% stainless steel. Mm-hmm. Did you take all of that? So a portion of the Viognier is in stainless steel. Right. And what he does is then blends those all together and makes the wine from that combination of barrels that the Viognier took out.
Which are
Right.
barrels from
When you look at this, I mentioned that we stopped malolactic fermentation at about 40%, and all the malolactic fermentation was done in the barrels. It's just more effective in the barrels, and it adds more character to the wine when it's malolactic fermentation occurs in the barrels. So all the wine that was in stainless went through 0 malolactic fermentation.
Which was 45% of the Viognier was in
Right.
stainless.
And that's the clean Sauvignon Blanc style that we brought into this wine to keep it fresh and keep it vibrant.
Which is what we do with our Sky Island Viognier, the 2015 that's on the market now, is all in stainless steel, or was produced in stainless steel. So like the 45% that was in the stainless steel in this. So you get a similar characteristic, I think, on the back end to our other Viognier, but you get that fruitier and a little bit of butter notes.
It's fresher. It's just fresher. It's more refreshing. I think it's a better Arizona summer wine than the 14 that we did. It's just, to me, is a much more fully structured wine with lots of different layers of flavors. And it's also, I think, going to pair well with food. I thought the 14 was a little bit pigeonholed by what you could have with it. And this one is much more broad as far as what flavors and cooking methods you're going to be able to pair with it.
You also picked these grapes at 24.1 bricks. Is that pretty common?
That's pretty ripe for white wine grapes. With the opulence we were getting from the fruit, gave me the ability to bring that bricks level a bit up. And that's where you're getting that tropical flavor, that pineapple, mango. That all comes from the last, like, 4 or 5 days. If we 22, 23, 20 and a half, we get more of the Sauvignon Blanc style fruit tasting, the grapefruit, citrus. This is a lot more opulent because of that extra, probably 5 or 6 days on the vine that took us from 22 to 24.1. These are all the agonizing decisions that have to be made at the last minute. And what am I going to do with this fruit when it comes in? Because I'm out there tasting it every day, and we're doing sugar tests, we're doing acid tests, we're doing titratable acidity tests, and all those things go into that picking decision. And in 2017, we thought that this wine would be at an optimal level at about 24 bricks. So.
And so you picked it on August 28th in 2017, and the pH level was 3.51. Is that pretty common?
That's pretty common for a white wine. I mean, if you look at a German Riesling or something like that, you're going to be looking at the 3.2 level. The acidity level is going to be a lot higher. We farm our grapes to try to keep the acid level down or the pH level down because of our heat. We tend to get a lot of pH spikes. So we farm to try to keep the pH down because the pH helps that mouthfeel and also helps you with that nice acidity at the back end. If your pHs get too high up, your wines are going to get flat and what I call flabby. You've probably all had a flabby California Viognier, flabby California Chardonnay, because they let their pHs get up too high, and then you just kind of go fat on the back end. They're almost like drinking oil. They get viscous, oily.
Yeah, oily. It has an oil feel.
And I don't like that, my white wines especially. So we farm to make sure that that's not going to happen. Sometimes we're right, sometimes we're not. But so far, I think our pHs have been pretty well managed for Arizona wines because Arizona wine pH can go crazy. And one of the biggest gripes with Arizona wine is the winemakers add way too much tartaric acid to try to take that pH down. And I can taste it.
Right.
And the only time I've ever had heartburn drinking wine was when I go Arizona wine drinking. Because of the tartaric acid, it's not natural. It's not supposed to be there. So
They're picking too early a lot of times.
They're picking too early, and the fruit's not in balance.
Right.
the pH is too high, but the sugars are too low. And that's a thing.
Right. Well, it's our philosophy to make the wine in the vineyard, not in the winery, so to speak.
Right.
So since we control our entire process and control the farming aspect of it, we're growing our grapes in a way that is going to produce the wine that we want to produce. So, but a lot of folks buy grapes and they don't have the control over the grape growing process, and they have to manipulate it in the winery. We want to do as little manipulation in the winery as we can or we need to, and we only want to enhance the quality of the grapes that come in through the barrel choices that we make. Other than that, there's no additives.
Plus the
John has a question.
plus the farming doesn't start when the grapes are growing. The farming starts the minute they finish their last crop. And that's why some of the hardest work we do in November, December, and January is we're trying to prepare the vines to keep the pHs down and have the grapes
In the
ripen
soils.
properly in the soil, using
Yeah.
the soil,
Managing
and
the
soil
soil.
management and water management. And a lot of people, they don't really get serious about the farming aspect until the grapes are a month or two from harvest. To me, that horse left the barn.
By then.
The preparation that needs to be taking place happens as soon as the grapes are picked, and they're not even dormant yet. So we add a lot of nutrients and do a lot of soil management in the fall before the vines go dormant, because they can uptake those things. So they're still growing. And after we pick our grapes, the root system develops then. The root system does not develop
During the growing.
while the plant has grapes on. It's wanting to make grapes. It's not wanting to develop roots. And so we do a lot of root management, root stimulation in the fall, like the Viognier, when we pick it in August 28th, we pick this August 28th. September 1st, they were getting managed. And so that's the difference in our philosophy, that if we're going to have a great grape coming out in 8 months or 9 months, it happens 8 or 9 months ahead of time.
Yeah, John, what's your question?
My question was, are you growing any other kind of white grapes other than Viognier?
No, all we're growing right now is Viognier. It's the only, that was a personal decision, that Peggy and I made together, but I'm not a big fan of most of the Rhone whites. We wanted to stay with the Rhone family because we thought they worked well where we are. I had an epiphany when we went to
The Rhone Valley.
the Rhone Valley. I'd never been there before. I'd been to every other valley or every other growing region in France. And I fell in love with some Marsanne and Roussanne wines that we don't get over here. I was blown away, and I shipped home 4 cases of white wine from France, which I never would have ever done, because that's stupid. Why would you ship a white wine home from France? But I fell in love with one of them from La Hermitage,
L'Hermitage,
and a
yeah.
couple of them from Côte d'Aron, and they were just fabulous Marsanne and Roussanne. So if we ever plant any more grapes, I think maybe do some of that. But right now, it's just the Viognier.
Yeah. So there's plenty of this. We did 206 cases that we produced, and the price point on this is $29 retail. So if you're a Pinnacle or a Chiricahua Circle member, your price is $23.20, and if you're a Summit member, your price is $24.65. So we think it's a nice price point for this quality of wine and the barrels and the process that we took to make this wine. So,
But what we think doesn't matter. It's what you
right,
think.
that's what you think. Hopefully you'll agree with us. So far, so good.
Lisa, you had a question?
Yeah. So you were talking about how, you were fermenting them in different barrels within the stainless steel and then bring them together. So when you bring them together, is that right to the bottle, or do they also sit together in another barrel before you
Good
bottle?
question.
Good question.
Yeah.
Typically, Lisa will when we start thinking about, or when I start thinking about, I think this wine is getting to the point where it's ready to have something done to it. And we rack every 45 days, which means we're pulling the clear juice out of the barrels and tanks every 45 days and evaluating that wine and smelling the aromas and looking at the flavor profiles, looking at the color, the acidity levels, all those things we're looking at. But when it gets down to kind of nitty-gritty time, I start putting together different options.
Formulas like.
Mm-hmm. And so 2017, we're going to be getting ready to release a Sauvignon Blanc style from the same vintage. It's in stainless steel right now. And it just went through cold stabilization. But we will blend up lots of different formulas to try to find out how to accentuate that harvest. Because my philosophy is every harvest is a once-in-a-lifetime event.
So, Lisa, what we do is, and Kurt and I make that final decision of what that final formula is when it goes into the barrels. And if we don't agree, we keep manipulating the percentages until we can agree. And in the 12 years, there's only been one time that we did not agree on the final formula, and Kurt wins. And that's
Yeah, when we started this thing, I told Peggy, winemaking is not a democracy.
yeah.
Somebody's name is going on the bottle. Somebody's going to be on the line for making the final decision. Her input is invaluable, and it's usually, we have a pretty, I think, inline
Common.
palate.
Yeah.
But when a push comes to shove, somebody's got to push the button, and it's me. So, but what we do is we will blend these into tanks.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll empty X amount of barrels into these tanks.
In those percentages.
In those percentages, blend it together to make sure it's a amalgamated blending, and then we'll do all the final testing from there. But we do end up blending in stainless steel and bottling out of stainless steel.
Okay.
No matter where the barrels or the wine starts, either in barrel, New French, or stainless steel, it all gets blended together and then bottled from those tanks.
That makes sense. Okay.
Common question that people have, this particular wine is 13.9% alcohol on it, which is a common for a white wine.
It's a little higher.
Is it a little
your
higher?
typical Sauvignon Blanc is going to be about 13.
Right.
Some of the Chardonnays you'll get will be in the low 14s. So this is in the wheelhouse of alcohol level, but the wine is not hot at all. I mean,
No.
considering it's almost 14% alcohol,
Right.
it's not alcohol-y in any way. It's so much more fruity.
Kurt, do you filter this at all, or is this unfiltered?
This wine was filtered. It was fine. So fining and filtering are very confusing things. This did go through a filter, but it was not fined. Fining is putting things in your wine that precipitate out particles. And typical fining agents are animal products, like gelatins, fish bladders, egg whites. We don't do any of that to any of our wines. That's why our wines are considered vegan, because we don't use any animal products.
Even in our field. So, I mean, if we use cow manure or pig manure, you can't call your wine vegan. So we don't even do that.
Yeah. So all our white wines are filtered, because if it was up to me,
Right there.
filter them. But most consumers, if they see a little bit of cloudiness in their white wine, they're like, something's wrong with it. Well, there's nothing wrong with it. That's wine.
Yeah.
But we do filter our white wines just to kind of polish them up a little bit. Our wines we don't, because what you see in your white wine glass, you can't see in red wine. But it's there. The same thing is in your white wine. So we don't fine, but we do filter. And so our wines are as natural as you can possibly get. I don't even like filtering them.
Right.
I can taste the fact that it went through the filtering. Now, usually after about 6 weeks in the bottle, it kind of snaps back to where it
It goes
was.
away.
But that filtering process is violent. I mean, that wine has been in a barrel for 2 or 3 years, been in a tank for a couple of years, and then you run it through this violent process of putting pressure on it and getting it through a filter. It changes the wine. And you just hope it snaps back to where it was when you decided on the final blend.
Once we put it in the bottle, how long did we wait before we're distributing it today?
Well, this one's about 6 weeks. The Petite we're going to taste here in a minute has been in the bottle for 18 months. So it was 3 years in the barrel, 18 months in the bottle. And I was telling Lisa today, and she tasted it today, and she goes, "That is so good." And I said, 8 months ago, it was gamey.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really brambly and not really ready to go. So we hold on to it until we think it's reached its peak. And not that it's going to age, but we don't want to release it until we think it's where it was when we had the vision for it and blended it.
So I would say it's reached its peak because our wines are very ageable. Our red wines are very ageable. So we don't release our wines until we feel it's back to the point when we made the decision that this is the formula that we're going to use. Why don't we move on? Any other questions on the white wine? Okay. We're going to open up our 2014 Sky Island Petite Sirah. And
Nobody's asleep yet.
no,
Good.
still with us, I think.
I'm still
Oh,
awake.
there's Susan's bottle.
There's Susan.
Mike has his bottle. The Bills have their bottle.
Wow.
Awesome. Okay. Fabulous.
So as Peggy mentioned earlier, all
Stasses have their bottle.
of our Sky Island wines are, the intention is to not influence them with any oak. We want you to taste the vineyard. We want you to taste Chiricahua Mountains. We want you to taste our volcanic soil and all blue label wines. And so this one is no different. This is one that I'm really happy with it because we released the 2014 signature, and that was all done in New American Oak. And people love that one. It's a beautiful wine. But this one took
me a while.
to get where it needed to go. And so here it is.
Let's pour us some.
Typical
Garnet.
amazing color.
Cheers, you guys.
So this is the Petite, okay, Petite Syrah, not the Syrah.
It's Petite Sirah, but it's Sky Island.
Got it.
2014 vintage. So
this was aged for 35 months in the barrel and 18 months in the bottle. So this wine is off of 4-year-old vines, believe it or not. And we're just now releasing it now because now it's really, really good. And so it's about 15.4% alcohol, which is
it's a big wine.
typically where we are with our petites. We let them, we pick these at 26 to 27 bricks because that's when they taste best. We have to manage the alcohol because a wine with that much alcohol in it can get hot and can give you those burning sensations in your mouth that you have.
So we fermented this down to 0 residual sugar.
Yep.
So they're like most of our red wine, all of our red wines are 0 residual sugar.
Yeah.
And that's done in the fermentation
Which means
process.
what we did is we let the yeast go until they died. And yeast die when they don't have any food left, which means there's no sugar left. And it's a kind of a complicated process to ferment down to that level because as the alcohol levels go up, the yeast have a very, very difficult environment to live in. Really control your temperatures and your acid levels and all those other factors that we do in the winery to make sure that those sugars get finished off.
We don't, there's movement in winemaking right now to use native yeasts. And people, you'll probably read on a bottle that this was made all with native yeast and so on. We don't like that philosophy. One is you have no idea what kind of native yeasts are out there in the field. I mean, we're very remote, so there's no other farming near us. And so we're probably in a better position than a lot of folks might be. But you never know what kind of yeast are.
Well,
plus the fact that these are high alcohol kind of wines, and we want to be able to control that fermentation process by inoculating with yeasts that can handle the alcohol levels of our wines.
Yep. And the wines will actually start up on their own when we bring them in and crush them and destem. They'll start fermenting all by themselves, and that's because there's yeast floating around everywhere. You're breathing yeast right now. It's out there. And so it's no different out in a vineyard. But we want to control the alcohol tolerance of the yeast, because we don't know what's flying out there. And if something reaches 13% and the yeast dies, we've got a sugary wine.
Yeah.
That somehow we have to try to restart or manipulate, and we want to not manipulate. So when we pick, we know that the tolerance of the hybrid yeast we're using to alcohol. And so when we pick something at 26 or 27, we had better use a yeast that's going to be able to tolerate 16% alcohol, or we're going to get stopped, or what we call stuck fermentation. And that's not a good place you want to be unless you want to make sweet wine.
And we put it into the vineyard as quickly as possible and try to cool down the grapes to stop that natural fermentation process as quickly as possible.
Yeah, because the hotter the fruit is, the hotter the juice is, the more quickly it's going to want to ferment.
John had a question, I think. John?
What is natural yeast?
Native.
Or native yeast, I'm sorry.
Pardon me?
What is native yeast?
Native yeast is what's flying around in the air everywhere. There are yeast particles all over the place, and oftentimes winemakers will let them do their thing.
Ferment the grapes.
Ferment the grapes without inoculating them with their decided choice of yeast. So just like a fruit salad in your refrigerator, you leave it in there for 3 days, and it starts to smell like booze.
Well, that's how the ancients used to make wine themselves.
That's right. And they didn't know why. They didn't
happened.
know why it happened. But
It was
they
a
were just
miracle.
happy.
It's God.
Yes.
They were just happy it did, So, but we want to be more in control of that because we want our wines to be dry, and so we choose specific different yeasts for each of our different grapes and for the sugar levels of each grape to make sure that they finish.
And it helps us understand the amount of time, manage the amount of time that fermentation occurs. But if you're using natural yeast, it could be a week, it could be 3 months that you're still in fermentation process because you haven't fermented down to a level that you can drink the wine.
You don't know what you're working with.
Yeah.
So as natural as we want to be, there's a couple of decisions that we need to make that give us at least a little bit of control because so much of this stuff's out of our control right now. And so the more we can find ways to monitor and do the wines the way we want to, we're going to try to make those choices.
And if you don't have control over it, then what could end up happening is you end up maybe having a very slow fermentation, then you end up getting bacteria and stuff like that in there. Then you end up getting your wine skunked before you even, can
That's exactly right. There's also a thing that we always fight against. It's called volatile acidity. That's basically on your weight of vinegar. And the longer it's exposed to that fermentation process, in my view, the more volatile acidity you're going to pick up. And volatile acidity is one of the few things that the federal government monitors. There's tolerance levels on that. They usually only care about the alcohol level because that's how you get taxed. It's all about the money. But there are guidelines for volatile acidity. And if you go above some of those guidelines, if you've ever been to a winery before and it smells like nail polish remover,
Run fast.
that's Oh, VA, the volatile acidity, the place either isn't clean, they didn't have a clean fermentation. That smell comes out of the wine. So if you ever go to a winery and you think you're at a nail salon, hit the road fast.
And we have been there. You
Oh, yeah.
will. We have been into several of them that we walked in, and of course, me being the nice person, I tried. And he's out in the parking
No,
lot already.
I can smell it coming off the airplane. We can fly into Spokane, going wine tasting in Southeast Washington. I can smell the place we don't want to go from the airport.
God. It's bad. Yeah. You will know it. You will know it instantly
If
now.
you know you're looking for it.
Right.
So if you ever smell that smell, that's probably not where you want to be.
Yeah, not good. Not a clean winery. But so this is 100% Petite Sirah, all estate, of course. And I think this is a real true reflection of what 2014 vintage was, which was a pretty normal year
From what we know.
for our 12
Yeah,
years in
but-
business.
But this is only 5-year-old vines.
Yeah.
So what was normal back in 2014, we're not really sure. But I just like the floralness that this has developed. When we tasted it about 6-8 months ago, I just got this blast of really brambly fruit. It almost tasted like biting into a blackberry vine. If you ever walked through a berry vineyard or berry patch, and you break some of those canes and you get that smell.
Mm-hmm.
This reminded me of when we first bottled it. Now it's picking up.
But it has a wonderful lilac. Do you get a bit of lilac on the nose?
Lilac, rose petal. There's something floral on the nose that is typical of a lot of petites. This is only developed this in the last 6 or 8 months.
Why was this released so late and compared to the other 2014 Petite Syrah?
I didn't like it. Next question. I was not happy with it because it had not snapped to where I thought it could be. And it took some time to get in the bottle and simmer down because it's got big fruit. And like I said, it was very, very brambly. And I think now it's more integrated. It's a nice fruit. You've got the floral notes to it. And it's just, it was time to let it go because I think it's better now than it's ever been.
Trust me, John, as marketing director, I'm like after him all the time. Where is the Sky Island Petite Sirah? Why can't we get this to the market? He's telling me, oh, it's not ready yet. It's not ready yet. We need it. So it's this pushing. He will not let a wine go to the market until he feels it's tasting well. So a lot of wine, and it's again our philosophy. That's why our wines we age such a long time, because a lot of philosophy is they put it in the bottle, they send it to the market instantly, and then they want you to cellar it and hope that it's going to taste okay, right?
Yep. Had a bunch of those.
And then you're buying it on a hope that it's going to be wine in a year. Well, we do the aging in our cellar, and we control that process, and we release it when we feel it's really tasting well. But then, like I said earlier, it can continue to age for quite a long time. Like even this one in neutral oak, I think this is an ageable wine for 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Ooh. And once again, our philosophy of trying to reflect special vintage in every bottle. And when does it reflect that vintage? The 2014 signature Petite Sirah, I thought reflected the vintage 16 months ago. We released it. I didn't think this one did, and so we didn't release it. And I think it's reflective of what the grapes did that year, and that's what we're trying to do: is make wines every year that are reflective of what that vineyard was able to give us. And I think this one is where it needs to be, because this tastes like 2014 to me.
Yeah, these different
And it didn't 6 months ago.
What, John? Go ahead, John.
Any different blocks or vineyards, the signature compared to the Sky Island?
Both of these, the 14 signature and the 14 Sky Island are from the same block of we call a road block. We did a 14.
It's the rows down by the road.
Yeah, we're really creative about things like that. We have another block of Petite Sirah that's up by the winery, and we call that the building block. And that's a different clone. And in 2014, we actually made a 100% building block. Some of you
Petite
probably
Sirah.
had it, Petite Sirah, but the signature and this wine are all from the road block. And this is a Antav, and they're our first plantings that we did in 2008. And so they're it's our oldest fruit and oldest vines, but they're still babies in this one because they're only 5 years, this is our fifth vintage.
But John, the difference between this wine, the Sky Island Petite Sirah 2014, and the 2014 signature Petite Sirah, though they're the same grapes from the same block, they're made differently. So the Sky Island Petite Sirah is all in neutral oak, so there's no oaky flavor to it. And the signature Petite Sirah is 100% New American oak.
Yep.
And I can't recall, was it Minnesota oak on that?
No, it was partially Missouri white oak, partially Shenandoah Valley, Virginia.
And that was aged for 35 months, the signature Petite Sirah. So if you try these two side by side, and I would suggest that if you get a chance to do that, if you're having dinner or having a dinner party, try the Sky Island Petite Sirah along with the signature Petite Sirah, and you will taste the difference. I mean, it's a big difference that oak brings to the party.
Yeah.
That American.
The other night.
Yeah.
This is the 2000.
Yeah, and the purple label will always be the signature on the Petite Sirah. And we won't have a signature every year. It's unusual to have a signature out of every vintage. We have lately, and we have a new one potentially coming out.
15.
A 15 coming out maybe after the first of the year or so. But what else can we say about this? This is a great wine for anything you're grilling, basically. Anything off the grill, or if you're having a pizza party, this would be great with pepperoni pizza. Yeah, it's a nice.
It's easy drinking. It's not something you need to sit there and ponder. This is, to me, isn't a puzzling wine like some of the wines we have that I'm still trying to figure out. Like our 15 Grenache, every time I taste that, and their 15 Syrah too, I just like. I've never tasted that before. This one is kind of straightforward, and you know what you're going to get. You're going to get some nice blackberries and blueberries, and it's going to be nice and soft on the palate. And
this was not fined or filtered.
No.
This is, so you will see some sediment residual on the bottle or on the neck of the bottle, and maybe some on the cork potentially. Not as much as
Marked on the cork when I opened it.
you had some sediment on the cork.
Yeah, I just kind of got my hands all purple. Just touching
Yep,
it.
it'll get on your hands. You got to be. Yep, there you go. There's the cork. You will have those. We love that.
Just make sure you show those things to the police officer when he pulls you over.
Yeah.
Okay.
What happened with the Sky Island Grenache that we're drinking as well, the 2014?
It had some too.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's really...
Always be careful opening our bottles because you will find sediment in it. It's just the nature of being a pure wine and not doing the fining agents that others will do.
Or even we don't filter our
or
reds.
filtering that.
We don't even filter our reds. So not only not fine, but we don't filter.
You can always send it through a filter at your house before you put it in your glass, or decant them. Even this one will decant nicely, I think, and open up a little bit. Because I think it's opening up since we've been talking and tasting it. It's opening up even more than that first when we opened up the bottle. So what do do we have coming down the pike?
Harvest.
Harvest is coming. It's coming early.
Yeah, everything's, it's so hot down there.
It's very hot.
We usually have about a month of monsoon activity by now, and we haven't had a drop. So we're getting no cloud cover in the afternoons. We're pouring the water on as hard as we can, but we just can't get enough water on them. So I think harvest is going to be early, and it's probably going to be light. What that means, we don't know, because we've never had weather like this in our history.
Right.
So
Right.
it might make the grapes phenomenal, or it might be a disaster. I don't know, but we're going to do what we can.
But
Well,
we,
the alcohol will probably be high.
alcohol?
Yeah, because the grapes are smaller, right?
Yeah, the grapes are very small. So it's either going to be a very concentrated harvest where we get that really high skin to pulp ratio, which is what you're looking for. We farm for small berries because we want that. But when they're turning this early because of the heat, we don't know what that's going to mean. So stock up on all the other wines, and we'll let you know.
Yeah. So we probably will pick, we've picked 1st of August before.
Mid-August typically. Yeah.
I think one year, because we had the barbecue the first weekend in August one year, and we were harvesting.
Yeah, we picked a little bit of Viognier that year.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully you're coming down to the barbecue, which is August 8th, if you haven't thought about that. We have to limit it to 50. Yep, I got your registrations, John and Lisa. But because of social distancing and all that good stuff. But so we're halfway there. We still have some spaces available for the barbecue.
Yeah, we're gonna set up some tables out in the vineyard, and we'll throw your ribs at you.
Put them on frisbees.
Yeah, exactly. And let's see what else is going on. We got harvest coming. We have these 2 new releases.
Yeah, we've got some beautiful.
Oh, we have a sale. I know a lot of you have
Oh, yeah.
taken advantage of our sale, but 40% off the
14 Grenache.
2014 Grenache, the
And the
2014 Sky Island Grenache, and the 24. Aha,
There it
there we
is.
go. Yes, that's one of your favorites. And
I hadn't had that 2014 Grenache in a while, and people have been calling me saying, "Man, is this drinking better than ever?"
Good.
The last time I tried it, I thought it was a little bit raisiny, a little bit too concentrated, and it seems like it's just really
smoothing out.
smoothed out and just very drinkable right now. So
Especially, yeah, we've noticed it even opening up right now. Like because it was a little concentrated when we first opened the bottle, and now it's drinking. Really
Yeah.
yeah, it needs a little bit of air.
Mm-hmm.
That was 14 was a funny Grenache harvest. If you can all hang on for a second. We got a horrible heat spike during this, and we went from like 22 bricks to 25 bricks, and I couldn't get a crew out to pick because it happened so fast. And so it was a lot more ripe and concentrated than I would have liked. I like typically my Grenache is about 24. But I think over time it's starting to lose a little bit of that raisiny characteristic that it got because of that heat spike. So I'm hoping that it keeps trending in that direction. But grab some, and it's a smoking deal.
Get some of that.
You'll put it up in your cellar and hold on to it.
Yeah, it's going to lay down a while. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Should write down.
Any other questions, you guys? Yeah, Bob.
You talked about just now and earlier about your aging horizon. You said you release the wines when they're ready to drink, but what do you think is the outlook? What's your horizon for?
You know, we're still struggling with that. I mean, we do a library tasting every year, and we did one last year of our 2009, 2010 wines, and they're still drinking amazingly well for 1- and 2-year-old vines. So we just don't know. We don't have neighbors. We don't have people that have grown grapes in our area before.
Or no one ages as long as we do.
Well, not just that. It's just we just don't know.
Right.
So you know, I always have the saying: the most expensive wine you've ever bought is the one that you waited too long to drink, and it's no longer. It's like neckties. You know, you buy a great necktie and it's out of style in 3 years. I don't know. My sense is because of our sanitation protocols and the quality of corks we're using and the quantity of bottles we're using and what we put into it, my sense is that the long-term potential is very good, but I don't know. I mean, Grenache typically doesn't age well, and we had a
2009.
We had a 2009 at our 2 years ago in our library tasting, and I thought it was going away.
Yeah, I think you guys were there, Lisa.
Yeah, I think we thought that, okay, this is it's reached its end and it's starting to go downhill a little bit. The next year we opened it and it was the star of the night. Go figure. We sold more of that wine that night than we did the year before because people thought it was fabulous. So I don't know. I mean, wine goes like this through the bottle, and it all depends on when you pull the cork exactly what it's going to be like. But I think the tannin structure on our
Petite
Syrahs and Syrahs are sound, and they're going to age a while. The Grenaches continue to confound me. Grenache, when we decided to plant Grenache, everybody said don't do it because it's a pain in the, It's a funky grape. It doesn't do what you want it to do. It's kind of like a Pinot Noir. And I said, I'm going to do it anyway because I think this spot has great potential for Grenache. And now I'm starting to see, it might be the only smart thing I've ever done in my life.
Except married.
No, you married me.
Well, I was coerced into that. It's because you were hot, baby. Yeah.
Was that area where the mesquite trees are, or were that one time they dropped all the pods for all those years?
Yeah,
Yes.
we had a lot of mesquite, scrub mesquite, not the big mesquite trees, but the 8, 10, 12-foot high mesquite trees. Over 1,000 of them.
And what's beautiful about that, where the mesquite trees were, is it makes the soil so rich because they're putting in
Nitrogen
into the soils. Mesquite trees do.
They're beans.
Because they're legumes, basically.
Yeah, they're bean trees.
And so if you see a big patch of mesquite, you think, vineyard, or agriculture of some sort, because it's going to be incredibly rich soils to have. But to kind of come full circle, Bob, I think our Petite Sirahs and Syrahs are definitely very ageable, 5, 10 years, and we have some of our very first ones in our cellar, tasting beautifully. But the Grenaches, and as you can tell, if you're a Grenache lover and you've been following us for years, our Grenache is different all the time. It changes, I think, over time, which is exciting. It's a fun thing. At least we find that fun.
Well, I think to me, the Grenache is probably the most expressive of our 4 grapes that we grow. It really says, this is this year. The Petite Sirah and the Syrah, the 2015 Syrah to me is very different this year because we were able to co-ferment that. If you haven't tried that one yet, please try it. It's truly a special, I think, wine.
Yeah.
It's got stuff going on that I never thought I'd have in a domestic Syrah. But the Grenache is the same one. The 15 Grenache is
phenomenal.
Yeah,
and I don't like Grenache.
Yeah.
It is not my.
And it's so different than the 14. I mean, Lisa, you guys are drinking the 14. The 15, you can't even imagine it came from the same side of the planet, let alone the same vineyard and the same knucklehead winemaker. So the Grenache is all over the place, and that makes it exciting, but it also
Hard to count on.
makes me lose sleep because I don't know what the heck's going to happen. Every time we make it, it's different.
Lisa, you had a comment?
Oh, I was going to say, do you think you'll ever do another one of those cellar tastings in the future? Because that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we hope to do another library tasting
Or yeah.
this spring coming up.
Okay.
So stay tuned. You guys are all on the mailing list, I'm sure, and we'll do one of those pretty quick. Plus, we're trying to sell our house, and I'm going to get all this wine out of here. So
We have a 2,000 bottle wine cellar in our house, so we're going to clear the cellar for,
yes.
because we're moving into an apartment or something.
What?
Yep.
So in your Fountain Hills
So
house.
deals will be there to be had. 'Cause if I don't sell it, I gotta move
gotta
it.
move
We're
it.
selling it.
Oh, look at that. I love that. State 48. Yeah.
Fountain Hills version.
Yeah, John. You'll
Fountain Hills version.
Yes.
I'm
It's the Fountain Hills one. Oh, that's awesome.
What's that?
Very cool.
Awesome. Was this fun today?
Outline of, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we can,
We'll do another one.
we'll do these, try to do these as regular as we can, so you guys aren't having to come. Oh,
You
Oh,
amazed us.
got the hats
look
on.
at you. Oh, okay. The meeting is over.
Yeah.
The meeting is over. It just went downhill with those U of A's.
Yeah,
Did Kurt ever tell you? I can't even, when we're going to the vineyard, we're going through Tucson, I can't even stop for gas in Tucson. I have to stop for gas on either in Marana or on the other side of Tucson.
I'm horrified that a nickel of sales tax is gonna go to that school.
Oh, my gosh. Hey.
Long-term rivalry.
But it's a friendly rivalry. Yeah, it's friendly.
All right, you guys, have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being there. Thanks for being there. Thanks for being with us. And
Stop in at the tasting room and grab some wine.
so great to see you all.
Bye-bye.
We will.